So this is a resident of East Palestine. She is Stella Gamble. She is going through some ailments right now, as is her daughter and her grandkids. Stella, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, give us a quick summary. Like, what are you going through right now? Which symptoms are you feeling? What is your family going through? And how long has this been going on?
Well, I have been feeling better because I hadn't been downtown. I was downtown for about an hour yesterday. I got really dizzy. I came home. I've had a headache ever since. I was up all night in the bathroom, sick at my stomach. My feet are numb. Around my lips are tingling. My grandkids have been sick now for about 2 weeks. They live, their mom's taken them out of town a couple of different times, but the railroad refused to reimburse her for the hotel anymore. After the 13th, they won't reimburse anymore. She took them to Mercy Health here in town, and they were diagnosed with chemical burns on their skin, their throats. They diagnosed my daughter with chemical bronchitis. And I actually have the papers here in front of me. And they actually say due to chemical exposure, it says that sore throats exposed to a creek contaminated by the spill occurred in East Palestine. They live really close to this creek. I am just absolutely livid at what's going on. I don't understand how it takes a scientist to tell somebody that when they're pumping toxic water out of the creek and it is spraying out of the pumps, there has not been a toxic water sign posted. They were storing toxic chemicals, materials, I don't know whether it was water or dirt, in our park, huge containers the whole way around. To the entrance of the park, they had one of those pumps in the creek. Yeah. Now, this is Sulphur Run, the creek that's the most contaminated, that runs underneath our whole city. They were spraying it out there. There's kids riding their bikes past there, going to the park. People pushing baby strollers around the park while those containers are sitting there. They, to me, it is unbelievable. They haven't put up a sign. There is no way in hell that anybody's kid ought to be around that water, that ought to be at a site that was just a toxic storage dump site or area storage site over a week ago. They keep saying, oh, the air's fine, the water's fine. Okay, let me ask you this. If everybody
There's no way it's fine. There's no way.
In that town thinks that water's fine.
Right.
People from all over this country have been sending in truckloads of water, bottled water. People are waiting in line to get it. If you think your water's fine, why are you taking bottled water? Right. You know, who is watching out for these kids? I'm almost 70 years old, and when these chemicals 10 years from now cause diabetes and liver disease and sterility, and these kids start coming up sick, it's not going to affect me because I'll probably be dead by then, but it's going to affect my grandkids.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is this: we should never have had that evacuation lifted. There is one reason, and only one reason, that we did have that evacuation lifted, so that the railroad could run that damn train and make more money. We should be evacuated. They are about to start phase 2. The EPA told us yesterday they are going to start phase 2, which consists of them churning up the bottom of those creek beds in town and by the park, and stirring up the rocks and settlement and bringing the chemicals to the surface so that they can contain them. This is what they've said. Now, if we're already sick from the little bit that's floating on the top and leaking into the air, What in the hell is going to happen when they churn it? And they will, we have no business being in this town while they're doing it.
I agree.
Let alone walking free and running free all over town. To me, I'm not a scientist, but I'm not an idiot. Does it make sense that they're going to stir that stuff up?
No, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. Reintroducing it to the air again and again. Yeah. No.
Right.
I just wanted to ask real quick, how old are your grandchildren, the ones who are sick?
The twins are 13. And then I have another granddaughter who's 17. She lives with me. And we're not close to the creeks. When she goes downtown, when she goes to school, she gets a headache. I have 3 foster kids here. They're 17, 13, and 11. One of those kids had a heart valve replacement. You know, the other one has anxiety disorder. I've been, you know, they have headaches all the time. I'm feeding them Tylenol. You know.
No, they should clear out the entire town. Norfolk Southern should not only be paying for hotel bills, they should be giving everybody a stipend. And this should be continuing on until it is properly cleaned out. And that is not what's happening at all. And the fact that they want to continue to run the railroads through the town, which is what you're doing. I saw a video the other day. So they're up and running again. That's just shocking to me.
They were up and when that evacuation was lifted, when they told us the evacuation was lifted and people were coming in town, they had to wait on the trains because the trains were, that is a true story. They had to wait on the trains because the trains were already running. And as far as, you know,
I can't.
Actually, there were 10 articles came out from the New York Times, from CNN this morning in regard to the guys that have been working, cleaning up.
Yeah.
They are getting sick now.
They're getting sick, yeah. They sent a letter to Governor DeWine, in fact, I saw.
Right.
The union did. Yeah.
No, you know, nobody understands that railroad is worth $58 billion. They paid out $7 billion in dividends to their stockholders last year. So if the people in this town, the poor people of this town of 4,500 people think that railroad won't sacrifice us.
Right.
And they've already bought and paid for the government. They are the government.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, their lobbyists, the money, the billions of dollars that their lobbyists have spent buying our officials. I mean, they donated $10,000 to our governor's campaign fund weeks before this happened. Another $129,000 to his campaign fund. And you know, I'm not holding that against him, but the fact of the matter is, it is what it is. They bought the
I think we should hold that against him.
Well, and the EPA, well, it's not his fault they donated to it, but the EPA, the other day I was sitting here and I Googled EPA and lies. I mean,
well, yeah, that's regulatory capture. So, you know, what's happened is the individuals that are supposed to be monitoring these folks, they have employees that used to work for the railroads, right? So this is true across many industries, not just this industry. And what happens, SEC would be another prime example, right? All the SEC regulators are ex-banksters, right? And then they go back to the business once they're done. This is like a revolving door thing that's been going on now for a few decades. And it's very problematic because their vested interest isn't necessarily in doing actual regulation, right? It's deregulation that they're interested in. They put these folks in these positions because they want to lobby the government even further to have no protections. And this has been going on by both parties. It's definitely not one political side versus the other. It's really a 1% plutonymy versus everybody else, right? Let's see how much we can allow these corporations to profiteer off of poor folks in the working class in the country.
I mean, I just feel like it's a lost cause.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to win. We won't be the first little town that's turned into a ghost town. You know, and people want to turn a blind eye. They have our community so divided. I mean, there's sites on there that I can't post on because I'm stirring up trouble. I'm I'm making things worse than they are. If we just need to move forward, we're, we just need to believe in our government and everything's going to be fine. What can we do to get our businesses, our foot traffic back in our,
Right.
I mean, we are divided. We're divided right down the middle. And I don't blame these business owners. I feel for those business owners. My heart breaks for them. We have everything we ever worked for invested in this property that we have paid for. It's probably worth jack nothing right now.
Yeah,
but
Norfolk Southern should be paying the businesses and you guys both. They should be held accountable they are the ones causing this economic damage, right? So why aren't they being held liable? Why are they doing stock buybacks instead, right?
But even if they pay us, well, what good is that money going to do?
Yeah.
If our kids and our grandkids are sick, if they're not allowed to spend our inheritance, that money isn't going to mean shit to any of us. And everybody, it's like, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone sometimes. That day I rode around the park, yesterday, DeWine had his little daily press conference out there. There's kids playing basketball in the background and so on. Somebody asked him, one of the reporters from 27 News, I believe, asked him about why there were no signs up for the toxic water. He said, oh, that's all fenced in. They wouldn't even let the cameras back in there. He was 100 yards from where they're throwing, shooting the water out.
And there's no fence
at the bottom of the park. And I don't think he had a clue
that it was open.
And there's all these kids over there playing basketball and running through the grass.
Wow.
That grass hasn't even been tested. They had those big trailers sitting there with either dirt or water in them. You can't tell me there's none on the ground.
Right. No, I'm sure it's in the soil too. That's the other thing.
Right.
And every time they dig up the soil, that also allows the chemicals and the toxins to get into the air a second time. So, which is why everybody needs to be moved out of the location while they do an actual cleanup. And the fact that that's not happening is just infuriating. It's unacceptable.
Let's be honest about this. If they do say that it's not safe while they dredge these creeks, this isn't just East Palestine we're talking about.
No, it's much bigger area. Yeah.
Negley, there's people clear down into East Liverpool.
Yeah.
They have found, they found 2 muskrats, 2 raccoons, all these fish, frogs, snakes, birds, 3 deer, all dead.
Wow.
You know what? And these people, if I say anything about it, these people animals die every day. I'm going to tell you what, maybe all them animals die.
Yeah.
I have been a country girl my whole life, and you can't kill a snapping turtle if you chop off its head.
Right.
They lived through the dinosaur age.
Right.
They don't just die.
Right.
They don't just happen to die right beside Sulphur Run or beside these contaminated creeks. If they evacuate us, how far are they going to go? That's what the one scientist said, Lester.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why they're not telling us the truth is because it would cause economic devastation.
Right.
And I have repeated that, economic devastation, because this is not just East Palestine.
Right. No, it's spreading out. Yeah.
Right. They have nuked this whole area. And if they tell us that we're not safe, then neither is anybody else in the surrounding areas. And the ramifications of them admitting that financially would need every penny of their $58 billion.
Which is, you know what? Maybe that's what needs to happen. I mean, maybe at some point in the United States, we have to stop letting these corporations get away with literal murder in the name of profits. Also, let me ask you this. I think it's strange that people could see that these animals and these fish are dying, right, from the toxins. Why would they be okay with that, knowing that other life is obviously going to be affected by the same toxins? Because if a fish dies, a turtle dies, a deer dies, it is also likely that a human being will be also become ill from the same toxins. There's no, way to protect yourself necessarily.
It's the same reason they're letting the kids play around this water. It's the same reason why, everybody in town. There was a lady said today she walked in our city building to pay her water bill and couldn't even pay it. She had to turn around and walk out because her eyes were burning so bad. You know,
And people are working in that environment.
right. Yeah. And people just want me to shut up and just move on and just let the people of East Palestine get back to the way East Palestine was. Well, you know what? That would be my biggest wish. That would be my biggest wish for it to get back the way it was, but it's not time yet. We should have never been brought in here until this mess was cleaned. Our kids should not be walking around in this crap. And I don't care what their air monitors say. These kids are having nosebleeds. There was a reporter from New York had a nosebleed while she was interviewing people. You know, this is not some made up thing. You know, I have documentation right here sitting here with me that says what my granddaughter's illness was from. I didn't make that up. It's on paper right here. You know, there's one, I think it's a councilman's wife was in the hospital with chemical bronchitis. And now none of the doctors will diagnose anything to do with chemicals. All of a sudden, now this was early on. Now they won't use the word chemical. Won't use that word. So who told them not to?
Yeah, good question.
How do you see, like, how do you kind of see all of this unfolding? Like, do you think there will be more accountability at any point, or do you kind of just feel helpless at this point, or kind of like, what's your sort of assessment on how this could?
My assessment is, and my mom told me this a long time ago, he who has the most money wins. That is the bottom line. And that's the bottom line in this whole country. And that's what this whole mess was about. And that's what it's going to be about. And we are not going to win this battle. It's not going to happen. There is nobody to save us from this. We are going to be buried under a rock, just like every other place that this ever happened to. And the ramifications from it are going to go way further than East Palestine. The ramifications from what they have done and the poison that they have laid upon us and the more poison they are about to stir up and give to us are going to go far beyond East Palestine's little town here. And you know what? We're just another sacrifice that they're willing to make. And there's nobody coming to save us. Nobody.
Has anyone thought about or talked about, or has any attorney approached you as far as doing some sort of class action against Norfolk Southern to hold them accountable financially?
Okay, yes. And I'm going to be perfectly honest how I feel about that. I've gotten emails. I've done some research online. Do you know what the people in those class actions get after the attorneys take their cut and the attorneys take their expenses? Some of those people in those wildfires out there got less than $100 after 13 years, I believe it was.
Wow.
That's your share. And again, what good's that going to do? That's not going to happen.
Right.
They're not going to move us out before they stir this shit up. They're going to get out in there and they're going to stir it up, and we're going to breathe it.
Right.
You know, I got a message from somebody who works at a sandwich shop in town. It happens to be one of the creeks run under there, and the smell is horrendous. And she said, you know, that she's tried talking to her boss about it. Okay, they've got sliced lunch meat, sliced veggies, buns, laying out like they always do at sandwich shops. That air in there stinks so bad, it has to be absorbing.
Right.
That. So not only are we walking in it, letting our kids play in it and breathing in those chemicals, we're going to eat some of it too. You know, to me, it's flabbergasting.
It is flabbergasting.
You know, I've always been a loudmouth, and I've always been one to speak my mind. And I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like me and they don't like my big mouth. But for God's sake, we're talking about your kids here. You know,
You're
am
not
I?
wrong. You're not wrong. You're right to be angry. Everybody that lives there should be angry about what's happening because it's not just. They're definitely not being honest about the toxins and the chemicals. That's obvious. You have a right to be angry.
It's anger and it's frustration and it's hurt.
Yeah.
You know, I see those two little girls who have their whole lives in front of them, and not just my two little girls. My foster kids who have been through hell, they've been abused, they've been beaten, they've been in foster care for years. They finally found some place where they're happy and they can live their life.
Yeah.
You know,
And then this happens.
it's all these other little kids whose parents are saying, "Oh, well, let's get back East Palestine the way it should be, the way it used to be. Let's just put this behind us. Quit talking about it. Quit stirring up trouble. The EPA says the water's fine, the air's fine. Then why's your kid having nosebleeds?
Right. Or
Why are you
chemical
having
burns on their arms. Yeah, it just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Why are deer dying?
Right.
Because they drank the water. That's why.
You're not supposed to ask. You're just
Right.
supposed to. It's not in my nature. I'm sorry. You know, that's just not
That's a good
in
thing.
my. And I can't believe that, you know, if they don't want to advocate for themselves, if they don't want to stand up and fight for themselves, you know, everybody says East Palestine strong, be strong. I want to see how strong you are 10 years from now when your little granddaughter can't have babies, or when your little grandson gets a tumor on his kidneys or develops diabetes. You know, oh, I just sat in a corner and kept my mouth shut. You know, my grandkids won't say that about me.
No, and it's good that you speak out because more people need to speak out. The reason that these large corporations continually get away with this is because not enough people are willing to stand up to them, and the government entities and politicians that are enabling their wrongdoing for money. I mean, more people need to speak out against this.
Yeah, thank you very much for doing what you do and for speaking out and for sharing your story with us. It's infinitely important, and we're going to continue to cover this the best that we can.
And
Stella,
you know
do you have a GoFundMe if folks watching this want to donate and help you? Do you have any place set up for that?
I don't,
No?
and I
Okay.
don't need any. I don't need the financial help.
Okay.
I just need someone to stop this sham that in this travesty that's being put on these kids. That's all that I can ask for.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here and thank you for speaking out, and we're going to continue doing the best we can to tell this story, and thank you for helping us do that. And the
100%.
best wishes to you and your family.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you, Stella.
Thank you guys so much for giving me the opportunity to voice my opinion. If that's all I can do, then I've done it.